The interior seemed to be occupied by an antiquarian's shop. Since it happened to be the pre-Passover week, the owner of the shop had just had the walls covered with a new layer of whitewash. The contents therefore lay about in the wildest disorder. There were bronze lamps of all shapes and sizes, and tottering piles of trays and plates which trembled and tinkled at the lightest touch. There were ranks of pictures, framed and unframed, chairs, loose bundles of precious stuffs, glassware, figurines of marble, metal, and plaster. At the center of this Babylonian disorder stood a Jew in a long capote, apparently engaged in the task of restoring order to the pre-Passover chaos. We had hardly entered when the pan brushed against a candelabrum which stood jammed in among masses of silver and glassware. The pyramid gave forth a warning, ringing sound, and the Jew came scampering toward us, terrified. "Help! You'll smash everything!" he shrieked. He put his hand out to the swaying heap, balanced it, caught his breath, and turned his face toward us, trying to force onto it a smile of courteous welcome. "Aha, Judah! You weren't expecting me. Your booth is not prepared for a visit from the hegemon. Sarah! Sarah!" the Jew called into an adjoining cellar in hearty Warsaw Yiddish. "That old Gentile's here again." And turning to me, he continued in the same language, "Every Passover Eve he comes to visit me. Once upon a time he used to buy things, but during these last few years I haven't earned anything from him. But he comes just the same, stares hard at me, and changes my name to Judah. May this festival be turned to mourning if I have the slightest idea what the old heathen's driving at." "Ah, Judah, Judah," said Pan Wiadomski, shaking his head reprovingly. "You never did keep things in order, neither there nor here. May I be paralyzed if I know what Judah he's talking about. Though come to think of it, my grandfather's name was Judah, but what's that got to do with it? My name happens to be Mordecai. Not that I care what name he calls me by, if he'd only spend a little money here before the festivals." I knew him at once. Pan Wiadomski turned to me triumphantly. "That face, there's no mistaking it. I happened to wander into this place one winter's night. I saw him sitting under a small petroleum lamp. He was shivering with the cold, his face was blue, his earlocks trembled in the wind, so did his long pointed beard as it hung over his gabardine. I looked once into his face and knew him. I asked him, 'Judah, what are you doing here?' At first he refused to recognize me, just as he did that time in Kfar Nahum, but later on he did recognize me. He turned again to the Jew. 'Well, Judah, you did recognize your hegemon, didn't you? Do you feel like walking with me up the Mount of Olives to Gat Shemen this evening?' The antiquarian fixed his puzzled eyes on me. 'Maybe you know what he's talking about. He drops in here every Passover Eve when I'm cleaning out the leaven. He babbles about Jerusalem and the Mount of Olives. Seems to be a learned sort of heathen, too. Always wants to know if I have any Hebrew books for sale. What does a heathen want with Hebrew books? Once he found a tattered old manuscript here, and you should have seen the fuss he made about it. He paid well for it, too. What can he be using it for? Does he want to cure somebody? Every time he sees an old manuscript, he's beside himself with curiosity and joy. He used to have money and spend it, but it's all gone now. I don't see him from one year's end to the other, only on Passovers, when I'm up to the ears in preparations. I suppose he's nothing but a penniless old man, sick too, poor old loony," and the Jew pointed significantly to his forehead. "He says," I addressed the shopkeeper, "that he knew you once in Jerusalem, in the days when the Second Temple was standing. Your name at that time, he says, was Judah Ishkariot. You were the man who sold Yeshua of Nazareth for 30 pieces of silver." "What's that? What's that? What did I sell? 30 pieces of silver? Listen, Pan, tell him I could do with 30 pieces of silver to prepare for the festival, and if there's anything here—" "Yeshua of Nazareth," I explained. That's Jesus Christ. You sold Jesus Christ for 30 pieces of silver to the high priest and the Roman officials." The Jew suddenly turned white as chalk. The ashen pallor flooded downward. It crept in under his beard so that his face took on a resemblance to a death mask. His eyes became glassy with terror. They rolled from side to side as if he had been smitten with a sudden sickness. In a voice that trembled with horror, he said, "If the Pan wants to make fun of a Jew, tell him to find someone else. Sarah, Sarah," he yelled, "come here at once." "What's he shouting about?" Pan Wiadomski asked me impatiently. "He's recognized me, huh? Did you see how frightened he got? That's just how he used to look. The same pale face with the hair standing up. He knows me. He knows his hegemon. No, no, Judah, don't be scared like that. I won't give you away." The Pan even held out his hand. "We've got a pact between us, you and I. There's a bond between us." The woman had now come into the shop. When her eyes fell on Pan Wiadomski, she burst into a torrent of abuse. "May 10,000 black curses carry him off," she shrilled. Her tattered wig danced on her head. Her sleeves were rolled up. Her ragged apron was wet. "What does he want with his 30 pieces of silver? We see him every Passover. If we only knew—" "I know what he wants," her husband answered excitedly. "It's one of those plots. Against me. That's all I need these days." "What plots?" his wife gasped. "What are you trying to scare me for?" "Plots about their God," the Jew babbled. "He says I sold him for 30 pieces of silver." "May the evil spirit descend on him. Does he want his 30 pieces of silver back? Does he think we've got them? Let him search the whole house and see if we've got 30 pieces of silver. All he'll find is 30 curses." I whispered in Pan Wiadomski's ear, "We're frightening these poor people. Let us go." And taking his hand, I tried to pull him from the cellar. He resisted at first, then yielded reluctantly. "Ah, Judah, Judah," he called back at the trembling Jew, "you've forgotten everything." I would have taken the Pan home with me, but he would not consent. He dug his bony fingers into my arm and said urgently, "Come with me. Let's go in search of Israel. I want to see the children of Israel." He pulled me deeper into the Jewish section. We pushed our way into arcades thronged with buyers and sellers, Jews and Jewesses laying in their stocks for the festival. We found ourselves in the midst of an indescribable tumult. Women carrying baskets and pails slung over their arms stood by the tubs of the fishermen, by the butcher's blocks, and bargained furiously. Hens clucked and fluttered about in their coops. Women stood by barrels of pickled cucumbers, looking as sour and wrinkled as their wares. Pan Wiadomski had to be everywhere, see everything, penetrate into every corner. He pushed his way through a press of women purchasing new plates and cups and pots in a hardware shop. He insisted on examining a linen and haberdashery store. He displayed the curiosity and gaiety of a child, and he kept on muttering delightedly, "Absolutely unchanged, absolutely the same, just as in those days." He paused in front of a small matzot dealer's stand. A group of poverty-stricken Jews in tattered festival coats and long boots were laying in at the last moment. Undoubtedly they had not been able to obtain the money till now, their pitiful store of unleavened bread for the Passover. The Pan hopped from one foot to the other in feverish excitement. "Matzot," he sang, "Matzot, as I live, the unleavened bread which they brought with them out of Egypt 3,000-4,000 years ago. Whenever I see those matzot, I have to think back. An old people, a tried and tormented people. Matzot, the bread of liberation." Then suddenly he whipped round toward me. "Tell me, you, I know that men like you are too intelligent, too assimilated, too rotten with the decadent, slimy, humanistic culture of the times to pay attention to this. You and your like want to produce men of a single mold, rows and rows of baked or half-baked little loaves out of a single oven. You don't believe in these things. You find them mad, fantastic, fanatical, revolting. You'd like to wipe it all out. Just the same, listen to me. Just the same, there must be among you obscure sects, secret, conspiratorial, mystical groups, religious plotters, you understand, who practice dark and fearful rituals without a name. You follow me? You understand what I'm alluding to? No, Pan Wiadomski, I don't know what you're alluding to, and I don't understand what you mean. Well, of course you aren't likely to reveal it to me. Your lips are sealed with the seal of the great ban, and it's not wholly impossible that you yourself are not privy to those secrets. Unfortunately, the religious motif has declined a great deal among your people, yet I don't doubt that there are deep levels where the ancient tradition survives unspoiled, where the 1,000-year-old national ritual is still observed by sects which have remained forever unrevealed. Tell me now, in all honesty, do you not believe that there are sects among you which still cling to that ritual? But what ritual? I asked. Well, if you must have it, the ritual of using at least one little drop of Christian blood for the baking of your matzot. And you actually believe that? I turned on him. Certainly. Why not? An ancient people, a culture which goes back thousands of years, Moses, Jehovah, the God of vengeance, a stiff-necked people not belonging to our contemporaneous, characterless, flabby Christian world, the final product of the religion imposed upon us by your countrymen. You have remained uncorrupted, surely, a hot-blooded desert tribe, bursting with passion, with eternal hatred and eternal loyalty. Why not? If I were a Jew, I would certainly belong to one of those sects which cling to the ancient and bloody ritual. Yes, even though it might be attended by the most frightful dangers, even if I had to pay for it with my life. Such a people would be worthy of the name. That is what I would call a race, a religion, a nation. But individuals like you, moderns, feeble descendants of a fiery ancestry, tremble at the very words. Your race, too, is degenerating. And you would really cling to some such horrible ritual? I asked him, curiously. Of course. Why shouldn't I? To feel the blood of my enemy on my lips, even if it be only a drop, a touch, a taste, a symbol at least. The call of race, the call to eternal hatred. Look, he cried suddenly, and his wide-open eyes radiated a wild light. Look at the women grabbing at those onions. I like Jews who eat onions. I like Jews who send out blasts of garlic like a hot desert wind through their bushy beards. The stench of onions and garlic is woven into the texture of their skin. Powerful, authentic men. Ho, ho! Your women know what their husbands like. Onions and garlic, the reek of the true male, not like us degenerate, disintegrating, modernizing Europeans. Suddenly, Pan Wiadomski became rigid and motionless. The blood left his face, his eyes expanded with astonishment and fear, while his nostrils began to quiver. His fingers closed convulsively on my arm. Look! See who stands there! I know that face. I've seen it before. Look! And before I could recover from my astonishment, Pan Wiadomski left my side and dashed toward a squat, powerful-looking, heavily molded Jew who stood by a tub full of fish. Simon! Simon Bar-Jonah! What are you doing here? But my astonishment increased when the fish dealer turned his face on Pan Wiadomski, for it was indeed the face of the apostle Simon Bar-Jonah, as tradition has fixed it among the classic painters. A square, hard skull, covered with a tough, wrinkled skin. Big, black, brilliant eyes withdrawn in profound sockets under the mighty arch of the forehead. The eyes blazed in their depths above the thick tangles of the grey beard, which surrounded with its heavy border the thick-veined cheeks. The short, flat nose, terminating in wide wings, surmounted a pair of fleshy lips. The Jew, apparently as astonished as I, stretched out a powerful, sinewy hand, which resembled the uncovered root of an olive tree, exposed to the weather and the hoofs of passing animals, and stared at the Pan. That Pan knows me? He asked. Of course I do. And don't you recognize the hegemon of Jerusalem, Simon? The what? Why, man, I'm your hegemon. The Jew wrinkled his brow and turned to the bystanders. Hegemon? And what may that be? What does he want? What's he talking about? And ignoring Pan Wiadomski, he took up his huckster's cry. Fish! Fresh fish! Good fresh pike for Passover! Buy, good women, buy! Simon! Simon! Don't you know me? Where have you left your rabbi? Rabbi? What rabbi? And what has a Gentile to do with a rabbi? What is he babbling about? I've no time for nonsense now. Fish, good housewives, fresh fish, 2 gulden a pound. Think of it, gasped the Pan, turning to me. This is the man who once drew a sword against me, the only Jew who ever dared to stand up to me. He actually sliced the ear off one of my most faithful men. Look what's become of him. Simon, what have you done with your sword? What sword? Asked the fish dealer angrily. Someone take this Gentile away, or there'll be trouble. Come, Pan, I begged him. You're feverish. You're not well. We'll go home. You're frightening these good people. It was with difficulty that I managed to drag Pan Wiadomski away from the tumultuous marketplace. Oh, Israel, Israel, what has become of thee? Come, Pan. And I love them so, he croaked mournfully, half to himself. I was taken aback. Whom, Pan? Why, you, my little Jews, my Hebrews. A dark cloud settled on his face. His hands and lips trembled. His nose quivered as the breath passed through it. He repeated, miserably, Israel, Israel, what have you done to yourself? Come, Pan Wiadomski, we'll take a carriage. But Pan Wiadomski did not hear me. Shoemakers, peddlers, hucksters, dealers in old clothes and rusty iron, that's what's become of you. You sit in the gutters of an alien, barbarous city, steeped in mud and snow. The Yochanans, the Simons, the Judahs, the Jacobs, the Josephs, and over there the trumpets of ram's horns peal out to the watchers about the temple towers. The sun rises and flashes back from the gilded gates. The priests come forth to their morning services. The streets and alleys about the temple are already thronged with the first pilgrims bringing their sacrifices. And they sit here, cobblers, tailors, what not, hidden in their miserable cellars, while I, their hegemon, am with them, steeped in the same muddy time and place. I breathe the same air, and they do not recognize me. They do not know who I am. Do they not see their own faces? Do they not hear their own voices? Israel, what art thou become? Behold, thou preparest thy Passover far, far from the house of thy father. And I, thy hegemon, am in exile even as thou art. He almost burst into tears for wretchedness of spirit. People stared at us as we passed, and a small crowd even began to follow us. There was a spring freshness in the air which awakened a spirit of eagerness and curiosity in human minds and hearts. I was beginning to worry that Pan Wiadomski's queer babblings about another life, about the Jews and their decline, would be overheard, and that would have been equally uncomfortable for him and for those that caught the words. I hailed the first carriage that came our way and practically forced my companion into it. Night had fallen when we arrived at his home, and the interior was solid darkness. I would have lighted the lamp, but this Pan Wiadomski categorically forbade. I drew the curtains and opened the window. I laid the old man down on his bed and let the mild spring wind blow over him. Instead of soothing him, it only increased his restlessness. Moonlight poured down through the grated window and laid a pattern of bars on his drawn, yellow-white face. The incredibly thin, hawk-like nose stood out below the fantastic, demonic eyes. Then a sort of rigidity seized him, and he began to speak, more to himself than to me, just as of old. Try to forget, Pan Wiadomski. No, I will not forget. I do not want to forget. I want to be with them. I am with them, now. He sat up suddenly on the bed. He stared unseeingly before him, his eyes tranquil, his face composed, and spoke.